Well, this is such a special time of year. We have, I think it's 4 days before Christmas, and we have the whole month really to get into the Spirit, and it really is, the month of December really is just a beautiful time of being able to get into that spirit of peace and goodwill. So what to talk about as we get so close to Christmas? There's so many beautiful stories, so many beautiful individuals that make up the Christmas story. The shepherds, the wise men, the angels, Mary and Joseph. So many different things that we could focus on. And one of the things I'd like to illustrate by going through today's sermon is that when you open the Lord's Word and you look at a particular phrase or even just one word, it opens up heaven. It opens up heaven to us because the Lord has revealed so many beautiful things to us. And as you'll hear today, by coming into the world has restored the kind of freedom that we so desperately need to be able to make good choices. So the word that I want us to focus on today from the scriptures is the word magnify, the activity of magnifying, coming from Mary, who of all things, considering the news that she received about her role in the birth of the Lord, of all the things with the fear, the worry, the concern, well, how's this all going to work out, of all the things that she could have said, she opened up her heart and said, "My soul magnifies the Lord." And then there's that beautiful prayer or blessing. So magnifying, it is a scientific concept, and it is also a theological concept. I want to spend a little bit with each one, because it's so interesting in the teachings of our church. It comes up several times where we are invited to get a microscope out and look through the lens of a microscope to see the incredible things that are all around us, from what appear to be the simplest things: a leaf, a seed, a bit of bark, an organism. And I'm sure by now we've all had that experience, and depending on how powerful the microscope is, you see an incredible order, an incredible beauty to the simplest of things. The one in the family service that I was illustrating, and I didn't want it to become a talk about snowflakes, but I do want to say something about snowflakes because it illustrates this invitation, and this is a scientific part that then moves into the theological. Snowflakes, according to scientists, it takes about 20 minutes for them to come down from the atmosphere through all kinds of different types of conditions to fall on the ground. And they don't all come down in a perfect shape. Some of them, due to the temperature and the moisture and wind and all kinds of things, won't actually come down in that beautiful snowflake pattern. But the ones who do, and they're beyond counting, are under a microscope, are the most incredible things to see. I have a little book which I'd love to share with you if you've never seen a snowflake under the microscope. Beautiful patterns, and there's a symmetry to them. They tend to have, and it's really without exception, either 6 points or 12 points, not 8. There's never more than one. They're all different. There's never a repetition. And you think, that's a snowflake. So we're invited to look at the Lord's creation. You know, think of in the New Testament, look at the birds of the air, how they neither toil nor spin nor gather into barns. And the Lord moves on to say, if I've given this kind of attention to the birds, think of the attention to detail that I've given to you human beings. So it is just, how can you not believe in a God. I mean, that kind of detail. We don't even look at those snowflakes. We just had a snowstorm about a week ago, a whole bunch of snow. And if we had just spent some time, like the author of this book, he spent a lifetime capturing these snowflakes. It's mind-boggling. An example of why we are invited to look at the things around us, the things of creation, because we will see, as that reading said, we will see incredible things. And so the reason for mentioning this is that we see things, when we look scientifically, when you look in a microscope, you see things that you never saw before, and you feel things that you never felt before. Well, that's the same thing on a theological or spiritual level too, in terms of our call from the Lord, or the invitation to magnify the things around us, the thoughts and feelings that come from the Lord and come from heaven. Really, one way to think about this is that free choice, or our choices, are really about what we choose to magnify. And we'll get into that in a moment. But I want to say something about the teachings that we have, and they're really the teachings we have about the conditions in the world when the Lord came on earth. And we often say, well, the Lord came into the world to save the human race, and it can sort of run over our tongue. Yes, the Lord came to save. He came to save us, and thankfully he did that. But what was really going on? One way to think about why it is just so important for us to step back and realize what happened with the Lord coming into the world and saving the human race is that the Lord restored our freedom. During the Lord's time on earth, people did not have the ability to choose heaven. They did not have the ability to make good choices. And just imagine that. I mean, how torturous that would be. That's how bad it had gotten. One teaching says, all good, both spiritual and natural, had perished, for people were such that they were not even capable of feeling remorse or shame. Another teaching says that there is no freedom in one direction unless there is freedom in the other direction. In other words, there is no weighing, if you think of the scales, there's no weighing unless the scales can tilt both ways. So when the Lord came on earth, the scales were tipped towards evil, and people no longer had the ability to make good choices, free choices. We always have to be able to have that ability to choose. So it's a remarkable thing, because this has everything to do with, well, I would like to be able to magnify everything good and true around me, but I feel like I get flooded. I feel like the evil spirits come, and game over. And I don't really feel free. I feel like the evil in this world is just so bad. And what's changed is that there are people in this world, and we have plenty to point to in the news and so forth. There's plenty of really bad, evil things that happen. And that's because people are freely choosing. They're freely choosing. And they have the freedom to choose the Lord. They have the freedom to magnify the Lord, and they're not choosing to take it. So that's what's different. Evil's still here in the world, but it's this ability to choose. So that's why I wanted to share this teaching, and it's probably a familiar one. If we believed what is really the case, it would not be evil, but good from the Lord that became our own. That's from the book Secrets of Heaven. If we believed as is really the case. So I was hinting at that already, that sometimes we can feel like it seems like the odds are stacked against us, that I'm not really free to be able to make the choices that I want to make. And what's different now, as a result of the Lord coming into the world, is that we have these saving truths. This is a saving truth because at any point during the day, any point today, tomorrow, throughout the month of December, during Christmas and then into the new year, we truly have the ability to say, you know what? I'm not going to say that sarcastic thing. And we might say, well, what are words? They're just words. But the teachings of our church say it's not just words, because a word generates a sphere, and a sphere can drag other people down when we're cynical, when we're skeptical, when we're negative. So we have this incredible opportunity and this incredible freedom to magnify whatever we want. And of course, the invitation in this sermon is to do what Mary did, which is to magnify the Lord. Magnify that which is good and true, everything that comes from the Lord. Magnify all of the incredible things that we see around us, if we believed as is really the case. So the truth has been revealed, and again, we may not feel free from evil, but that ability to choose, freely choose, the Lord over hell is very, very powerful. Another thing I want to bring out with this magnifying is that the whole point of magnifying is that there's something small. Think of the snowflake, or think of a seed. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed. Think of how many times in the scriptures, both in the Old Testament and the New, where we are given this concept and this idea of things, especially with respect to our regeneration, our spiritual rebirth, start off small. And this is an important thing to think about, because in magnifying something, when you look at that snowflake and you see the incredible love and wisdom in the creation of that one snowflake, or of anything that we look at under the microscope, what we're seeing is the Lord's love and wisdom behind it. And the only way, it starts off small, and then as you look, it could be the same for a telescope. A telescope is a magnifier. It's bringing to us something that is very small, and we're seeing incredible things. So think in terms of the Advent story, how many times there's this concept of something small that promises to become magnified. The recitation this morning, "But you, Bethlehem Ephratah, though you are little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of you shall come one to be ruler in Israel." So the tiny little town of Bethlehem, and of course, the Lord himself began as a tiny little baby. And then the other reading we had was John, who was born 6 months before the Lord, who was the one who in this world was there to prepare people for the coming of the Lord. And that statement that he, the Lord, must increase and I, John, must decrease. This idea of switching the things that we tend to magnify. On our own, we tend to magnify the gossip, the negativity. That's just our hereditary tendency. And we need to decrease, and we need to start magnifying the Lord in place of that. And again, we can do it at any point in time. It feels like not very possible, but again, on a deep level, we have been given that freedom, that power to be able to make those types of choices. So, if the Lord invites us to look in the microscope at inanimate objects and see the wonder and the splendor, the love and wisdom behind all of these created things, then what about people? Now, you probably don't want to be put under a microscope, but the point is that we are invited to go deeper than the surface. Any relationship that matures and ages goes through the process of seeing a person not just for what's on the outside, but what's on the inside. And of all religions, in the new church, we're taught so strongly that we human beings have layers and layers and levels, degrees within us, within our minds, within our souls, within our hearts, and that these are the important parts. These are the parts that we should be paying attention to on an individual level and with others. So we're invited to go beyond the appearances, beyond the surface, to not judge according to appearances. And think of how easy that is to magnify the shortcomings that we see externally in people around us, even loved ones. And what we're invited to do with this invitation to magnify and to look deeper is to start looking at what is good inside other people. And that is something that has no limit and can go deeper and deeper. And that's where we see the real beauty, the real peace, the real contentment, is when we look past the appearances to what's inside. And of course, the scriptures are constantly encouraging us to move in that direction. But again, I think it's a useful thing to be using this concept of magnifying. What am I going to magnify today? So we have this Christmas season, and I'm convinced now, after having experienced, like you, many Christmases, is that something about the month of December and something about the beautiful hymns, the songs that we hear, the sacred music, the stories, they trigger very deep childhood memories, what we call remains or remnants. And so there's something very special that goes on during the Christmas season. And there is that feeling of being able to respond to the angels' call for there to be peace on earth and goodwill toward others. So it comes relatively easy. The challenge is, what's going to happen in January? What are we going to magnify? Because the magnifying the good, happy things, all of the presence, the feelings of goodwill, I mean, those are genuine. I'm not saying those are not genuine, but going into beyond Christmas, into the new year, what is it that we're going to choose to magnify? Because that's what free choice is about. And we've been given this incredible freedom. We really don't have to go down that path of resentment, that path of revenge, that path of pettiness. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's so easy to do, but we're not like the dire conditions when the Lord came into the world, where people, even if they wanted to do something different, couldn't. They would have just gone down that dark path. We have the freedom to just simply say, I know where that's coming from, as that passage said. It's not me. I don't know why I'm making it my own. I want to magnify that which is good. And that's what I'd like to end with in the conclusion here. Just like Mary, we are invited to magnify the Lord, magnify that which is good, that which is true, that which is beautiful, pure, peaceful, useful. And I would say that we should not underestimate the power of words. Just saying something in a conversation where it might be going in a negative direction. It's just we can magnify the Lord in the simplest of exchanges, the most tense of exchanges, by saying, this is what I choose to magnify. I want to choose that which comes from heaven, that which comes from the Lord. This was just one line from the Magnificat, but Mary's gratitude comes from her acknowledgement that he who is mighty has done great things. And I would like to end with that by saying and thinking of your own way of doing this as you go through the Christmas season and into the new year. My soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit has rejoiced in God my Savior. For he has regarded the lowly state of his maidservant. For behold, henceforth all generations will call me blessed. For he who is mighty has done great things for me, and holy is his name. Amen.